evening. Welcome on our webinar, Transformational Mindset, the Key to Success. My name is Urszula Wysocka. I'm a country manager for Poland and content advisor at EFMA Business Academy and Advisory. Now, more than ever, financial institutions must strengthen their foundations for success by developing strong, resilient leaders at all levels. During our webinar series, we inspire and share good practices at creating the transformational mindset that carries the organization forward. During episode 1, we are talking about people that are the most important in the process of successful transformation. Those who couldn't join us can see the recording on our EFMA website. And today, we will continue this important subject. This time, together with my great guests, we will talk about the important role of leadership, that is to create a mindset of change, innovation, and growth. Let me introduce my great guests. Sorry, I have some problems with my slide. I would like to introduce my guest, Hans van der Horst, Global Tribe Lead Customer Data Management, ING Bank. Hello, Hans. Armand Vahudi-Hartono, Deputy President Director, Bank Central Asia. Hello, Armand.
Hello, Ursula. Hello, everybody.
Antonio Cano, CEO, Member Board of Directors, AGS Belgium. Hello, Antonio.
Good morning.
And Paul Berry, Leadership Coach at Human Performance Science. Hello, Paul Berry.
Good morning, everybody.
And also, I would like to welcome John Berry, CEO of EFMA. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. John. Good morning.
And I would like to start for our discussion from actual situation. We are at COVID time, and I would like to ask you to share your perspective, your conclusions. What impact did the COVID time have on the leadership and management style of the top managers in your institutions? Hans, can we start from you?
Yes, thank you, Ursula. An interesting question, because I've given that some thought myself. And maybe it's good to understand that ING went a few years ago through a major change in leadership style, because we implemented an agile way of work. And that was not only saying we're going to be agile, but it was a major reorganization where we changed the setup of the organization from a classical departmental organization like most banks, and also we were, into a organization structure where you have tribes which have replaced the current department. With inside these tribes, we're not working in smaller departments anymore, because we're smalling in multidisciplinary teams called squads, where you have, and the other thing is that we really much brought together thinking and delivery in the way that you don't have product managers and then project managers and then people on the IT delivering. We combine that in one tribe in an end-to-end responsibility. So when COVID started out, we had a little bit different setup of the organization already, because that process started in 2015 in the Netherlands. And what I see now, what I experience now, and of course people around the world have to realize that we are in a work from home situation that started in almost 1 year ago, on the 16th of March 2020. On that day, we all went home. Just said suddenly at Friday, said you don't come back on Monday at the office because you're in a sort of a semi-lockdown. But you still had to go running your organization. And what I personally experienced, because nobody could have been prepared for that, that I was very much happy with the way we are set up as an organization, and happy with the agile way of work, consisting of smaller entities like the squads, where a lot of autonomy is in your squad, because those people are easy, they find each other in an easier way, they have more responsibility for end-to-end delivery or end-to-end processes, and they just continue to work because they knew each other so close, and they were there in smaller teams, and it's easier to connect for them in the virtual world, in the online world. And also it's, for me, it's relatively easy, although it's not that easy. It's relatively easy to get the alignment between all the squads, because we have very much embedded rituals about having a 6-year rolling forecast planning. We have QBR sessions where every team with its own purpose know what is going to contribute on the wider change purpose of ING. And we all know what the change is. Of course, it's all about digitization nowadays. We are, I think, all the listeners will recognize that we are all going to a very much more digital world in banking anyway. It may be different the pace, but the end station will be more and more digital for anyone. Having an organization set up like this really facilitates that. And in COVID times, it has proven to be, in my opinion, successful, because we're still delivering at the same speed as we were delivering before. I don't know if that will continue forever, not seeing each other. That might be different, but I'm very happy in the way we're set up and the way we can interact in the way we work. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Hans. I think that's what you said. The way of leadership style, the way of management is the result of the way of management and leadership style from before COVID. Yeah, it was created as a part of organizational culture.
Yes. Yeah, and leaderships are different in the agile way. So there's not only the way of work, but there's a lot of more autonomy to lower to the people in your organization, and not everything is decided on the hierarchical management level. Only purpose and direction are decided there, and priority setting, but there is a lot of autonomy in your squads, and that makes them faster. And also in times of COVID, it makes them easier to handle it, because they don't have to continue to come back to you. I mean, I think that's all one of the true benefits pre-COVID, but also certainly in COVID in a virtual environment.
Thank you very much. And Armand, can you please share your perspective and your conclusions after this time and during this time, because we are all the time at this difficult time?
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Hans. We have similar experience where we were forced to change the way we work, automate everything because of crisis and the scale of Indonesia. We have 270 million people, and customer numbers were increasing very rapidly. So we were forced to do everything digitally. So since 10 years ago, we also had the push to change our organization, the way we work, the way we think, into similar to what Hans is doing in ING. We actually went to ING to actually look at what they were doing, and we were doing similar things, more agile. They call it squads, we call it mini companies, but it's inevitable. And we had to change our mindset of having monoliths of businesses into Lego pieces. Right, Hans? That's how I would actually explain it. So, and that required us to actually delegate leadership. It used to be one person, army-style leadership, decide everything, and everybody else has to wait. And today, no, it's actually little mini companies, or little startup companies working together with the ecosystem and working with our customers' ecosystem. These things were going digitally anyway. And I think the pandemic actually made all of that in an instant. All the things all the changes that we are doing gradually, suddenly we were forced to do it instantly, and it all just worked. But I don't think we can actually do it if we didn't start our change 10 years ago. And the role of the leader, which is our CEO, myself, and our board of leadership, would be to show the example. We had to be the example. We are not people who can see everything. We are people who everyone else sees. They would actually look at us. Do you really embrace this idea of having Lego parts in a company so we are agile enough to make whatever we need, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future anyway. That's why we need Lego parts idea. So if the future goes in another way, we can shape it accordingly. That was the basic idea. And I think the pandemic accelerated everything instantly. So suddenly we were just working online. I haven't seen all my team for the last 1 year. And we are just use all the online tools. You can use MST, Monday.com, Jira, all those development tools, and it's okay. Another one main role of leadership, which is really important, actually support the team with all the necessary infrastructure, training, coaching, encouragement from behind, or with whether you're having meeting with them or whether they don't know, they don't need to know, but actually we are actually supporting them from behind, whether it's actually we're purchasing all the technologies that they need, whether we are actually approving policies so it makes it easier for them to make decisions. I think a great crisis like this, you should not miss. Do not miss a great crisis. It's the best time to accelerate whatever your leaders, whatever your company want to do. It's all about survival, and people need to see someone. It's uncertain, and that's why you need leaders to show the way.
Thank you very much, paramount. I think what is important, what you've said, of course, now we see the result of creating the leadership style before COVID, but also I think you said very important thing, the crisis is an opportunity, not the problem. And I think it's also the opportunity for managers for developing their skills.
Yeah, I think a problem and opportunity are one word. It is one word. You cannot separate them.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And Antonio, can you please share us your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, at GS, we're a very decentralized group with a lot of autonomous operating companies that operate also a bit different. So in that sense, we're different than ING. We don't have the agile way of working throughout the organization. There are pockets of it, so that's a difference. Maybe what the big change has been is the home working. Everybody has referred to that. If I look at our Belgian operations, which are the largest, there we were actually prepared to do that. Again, thanks to a very different crisis. We had the terrorist attacks at Zaventem Airport a few years ago, and actually that triggered to make our infrastructure ready for everybody to work at home. So when the lockdown came here in Belgium, it was seamless. From one day to the other, everything worked and everybody could start from working. So the technological challenge was less. We had a bigger technological challenges in other operating companies, but they coped, and then you see the resilience of management and people, that you somehow find a solution. But it's much more painful. So one of the lessons is it always pays to be prepared. But even if you are prepared, it's still a challenge. Now, related to that is the whole homeworking concept. So we were already applying homeworking at most companies for 1-2 days a week. There was a lot of resistance from particularly middle management to that, because you use the classical sense of control, and you are forced to manage more really by objectives, which means that people have much more autonomy. You don't see people, so it becomes much more difficult. And because you don't see people, and it sounds a bit contradictory, but it is not, communication becomes so much more important, and you must really double down on communicating with people via digital tools, the Zooms, Teams, etc. And you need to double down, because it is, let's face it, a poorer means of communication. It is just less rich than being face-to-face, particularly in some cultures. And then what we should always remember is communication is a two-way thing, particularly in this situation. It is not so much about speaking and preaching your message. That is important, but it's also very important to listen and to feel if really the message has been received. And again, that's much more challenging in a digital world. But you must listen and somehow capture this feedback to adjust your message. And then there's a whole context on how you manage how people feel at a distance. You don't see people, and so you must be aware. Difference in ages, difference in family situations, children that normally go to school that don't go to school. So managers have really the challenge to be much more in contact with people, engaged in people. So a much more people-oriented management and much less task-oriented management. I think that's been the big trigger besides the technological thing of what this crisis has brought. And it's here to stay. To some extent, home working, I don't see a lot of people really going back 5 days a week to the office. I think we've passed that.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I think what you also said, I think that, of course, it's linked with our episode 1 that we're talking about people. People are the most important in the whole process of digitalization and transformation. I'm happy you shared this because I think that when talking about leadership, we need to talk about developing and supporting people. Thank you very much. And then I would like to ask to invite our participants to ask the questions, but I will start asking the questions for the participants. I would like to share with you the question, and we would like to know your opinion. Please share your opinion. Which leadership trend is very close to your challenges? It's a multiple choice, so please, you can choose more than one. I will wait some seconds because I see that a lot of people are voting. Thank you very much for active participation. And I think that we will end polling. Okay, and I will share the results with you. And I would like to ask Paul for comment for the comment for these results.
Well, I'm just digesting them. So it seems to me that there's just a wide dispersion of challenges across the board. But I guess, yeah, it's not surprising, well, certainly not surprising to me. And again, this sounds like it's consistent with what the others have actually already said, that agility, this need for agility resonates so highly. And that's certainly congruent with, you know, with comments that I'll make during the session as well. You know, the environment has forced agility onto organizations. You know, I used to work for a very large global bank, which historically, if you'd have said to the head of IT or to the global head, so everybody's going to work from home, can we all work from home the next day? You'd have just been told that was impossible. Obviously, it wasn't impossible. It was just a mindset. So there's a sort of perception of agility, but also a reality of agility. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But it also doesn't surprise me that there are a variety of challenges as well.
And let's continue. And I would like to ask you from your perspective, what are the top leadership challenges in this uncertain future?
So I guess my first comment, which may actually be well, I hope a source of comfort to people, is that, you know, you mentioned an uncertain future, but I think the reality is that certainty and predictability is largely an illusion. The reality is we're always in an unpredictable environment, and we always have uncertainty in our lives, in organizations' lives. We just try to convince ourselves pre-pandemic that we are in a predictable environment. But just because we feel that we're in a predictable environment doesn't mean that reflects our actual reality. But the reason we do that is to try to generate more control over our environments, which again is consistent with what we've heard so far around autonomy, you know, and control and the movement of control from leaders to smaller teams. But I think that understanding the psychology behind that can be quite useful for then considering the challenges. And, you know, the reality is that when we feel we're in an unpredictable environment or in an uncertain environment, that generates anxiety. You know, if you wanted to generate stress in people, you create an uncertain environment. It's a very effective way amongst about 4 or 5 others. And when we feel anxious, we don't like it. So humans are very clever. So we behave in ways to protect ourselves from feeling anxious. And one of the ways that we do that is to try to create certainty in our environment. Now, that's fine because we feel more in control, we feel less stressed. The dark side to that is that it impacts how we process information. And this is particularly important for leaders who are making important consequential decisions. They need to process information accurately. And there are 2 broad ways that information processing gets compromised. One is that when leaders or anybody is faced with a variety of options, we prematurely close on a particular solution. So rather than maintaining a broad awareness or exploring further possibilities, if something feels right, our attention becomes very myopic, and so we close too soon on particular solutions. The other way that information processing gets affected is that when we are faced with a range of options and there is uncertainty in our environment, we are just naturally drawn to adverse possibilities amongst those uncertainties. So some of those uncertainties will be positive, some will be negative, but we're just drawn naturally to the possibilities where things can go wrong. We're programmed to do so. So that again will compromise our information processing, and what the output of that is that we then lose what's called situational awareness of what's going on in a broader context of our environment. And that happens in very micro examples. So examples of aeroplanes crashing because an alarm has gone off, which is a trivial alarm, but the pilots become so myopically focused on trying to fix a faulty light that they forget to actually fly the aircraft and they crash the aircraft. This human error is a big factor in these environments. But on a much bigger scale, this happened in the financial crisis as well in 2008, that leaders of large financial institutions lost situational awareness of what was going on. That also affects communication. And to Antonio's point, communication is even more important in environments that are characterized as being unpredictable or uncertain. Because what you don't want to do is to be unpredictable as a leader in how you communicate, because now you're going to compound anxiety of people who, your colleagues and people that follow you. So clear communication is even more important in these environments. And that then links to the challenges. I see 2 broadly. The first is to actually get to a place where you can tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty. So rather than trying to resolve uncertainty, coping really well with uncertainty is about tolerating the discomfort that produces. Just as a leader who struggles to give autonomy to members of their team, that comes from, you know, if I'm a leader and I give others autonomy, I now lose autonomy, and that loss of I now have uncertainty about how others will behave and if they will produce the outcomes that I want to produce. That creates discomfort, and some people find that difficult, so they then cope with that by micromanaging. So I'll now take back your autonomy because now I will control your environment because this makes me feel better. So in very uncertain, unpredictable environments, tolerating discomfort is really a capability that anybody, but especially leaders, need to focus on. And it's moving away from this notion of needing to control and predict one's environment, which historically has been the case with organizations. And that's then connected with a second challenge, as I see, which is really to develop organizational resilience. And what I mean by that is fundamentally about adaptability, the ability to evolve and possibly thrive, but maybe not thrive, as Armand said, survive in your current environment. And that's, I love this notion, the conceptualization that Armand said of Lego pieces, because this is fundamentally, what adaptability is, because you're moving. Adaptability is not consistent with a hierarchical command control structure of approach to leadership, and an organization is very well positioned to adapt, has embedded within it a learning focus, a focus on creativity, more decentralized decision making, again, as Hans and others have mentioned, moving decision making and autonomy to smaller groups rather than the top leadership level. So that means the leaders now play a different role. They're not, the role of leader is not to be all-knowing and having to have all the solutions to things, because that puts a lot of pressure as well on leaders, and also it makes them very rigid as an organization. So these are, I would see, as the two broad challenges.
Thank you very much, Paul. And now what you said, of course, leadership styles, is the whole process is the never-ending process. I think that you will agree with me. But also, what is important, I can say that my guests represent the companies, the institutions that where you made the transformation in different areas. And do you agree with me that, of course, now the actual COVID situation is a big challenge for leadership style, but also the processes of the transformation of development, the institutions are also a big challenge for creating the leadership style. And I would like to ask you to share your experience. And I would like to ask Hans, your bank as the first bank in the world has implemented the agile way of working. Can you share with us? Can you share with the other institutions who would like to implement or who are at the process of implementation of agile way of working, how they link it in creating the leadership style? What would you recommend, and what is your practice? Because I think it's in creating agile way of working and creating a leadership style, there are two big challenges.
Good. I think we got only till 11 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I can have a whole seminar on this.
I know.
Two things before that. COVID is not bringing uncertainty at this moment. COVID is just an extra thing on top of the uncertainty what was already there. And in banking, I think there are two fundamental things. One is, in my opinion, technology change. Rapid technology change will make banks change fundamentally. Since 2010, we have apps, and apps will change the banking landscape even more fundamentally than the web did. So you have to adjust yourself to this new world, and I think this is also what ING brought towards implementation of agile. It was really driven from the fact that we want to be a digital leader, one of the big digital leaders in the banking sector. We were, of course, with ING Direct, one of the digital leaders in the era of internet. And if you want to do so, you have to transform your organization to be so. I mean, you are going to be a different organization if you are very much in the digital world, the digital space, than when you are in the classic banking space with branches and big mass of people. So that's when we started. And if you talk about agile is not about just having a different way of work and telling people, now you're not a department, but you're called a tribe. That is not agile. Agile is fundamentally a shift in leadership style and a shift in mindset. And that by the implementation in the Netherlands, we had a massive change in leadership as well. It was really brought along from the top leadership who fundamentally said, this is the vision we have to go to, this is what the way we implement it. And there was everybody in the whole organization had to reapply to the new jobs, which are some of them are a little bit changed, but some of them are fundamentally changed. And one of the things what was also done, and I noticed it here as well, management layers were taken out. Because to be successful, you need to give autonomy to people in little, in the Lego blocks of the micro companies, or what we call the squads. But you'll never reach that stage if you keep your leadership or your management structure the same, because there are too many people just simply there to have this control. If you don't take them out and you remain them, what are they going to do? I mean, you need fundamental different way of leadership style, where there's a difference between steering on the priorities and outcomes. And that's more the top level side. What's our vision and how do we translate it in the building block pieces to what priorities, what do we want to achieve? And the real outcome is being achieved by the people you hire. So there's a lot of new leadership is based on having the right people in and motivating and train them and judge them on their capabilities, and not on their day-to-day, what are you doing today, or please do it this way, or I want to check this. So that's it's a different leadership style altogether. And that takes time. And if you want to implement it, I think the first thing is have to do, why should I do it? Why should we want to do it? Not because it's in the textbook or McKinsey tells me, but does it feel natural for us? What do we want to achieve? What is our purpose? And if we want to do so, does our culture fit what we want to do? I mean, there is no one way of agile thing. It's you need to have a cultural fit. And you have to change in the way which fit your company culture, or your country culture, and that there will be a little bit difference all over the world. But fundamentally, if you want to bring more power to, I would say, your micro company, your squads, more fundamentally to the base of your organization, you have to really fundamentally change your leadership style, and that is a big change, and it also takes some pain. It's also, we always said, what are you willing to give up? Because you also fundamentally have to give up. You have to give up your feeling of control, but you also have to give up some people which don't fit the profile of this leadership style. Because giving autonomy is something different than having control. Hopefully, this will be sort of the start of an answer of where you have to look at and what it does mean to get there.
Thank you very much. As you said, when we would like to implement or to change the process, we start to change the way of thinking and the attitude of the people for this process. Thank you very much. And Paramount, I would like to ask you for your perspective. You did a big transformation in the process of customer experience. Can you share with us the experience in the aspect of leading people?
Thank you, Ursula. So I don't need to convince anybody in the room, because Hans and Paul already shared so many things, the importance of being agile and being customer focused. But when Hans just said it, there's a lot of disruption where customer expectation, because of technology, changed so quickly that if you're not agile enough, meaning you don't have the culture that allows you to keep trying, you'll be left behind. Because customers are not spoiled by e-commerce company. Amazon has a great customer experience. Uber has a great design, and so on. So if banks do not keep up with all these other players, we will definitely be left behind by customers if they have the option. It's all about survivability. Now, our old way of working used to be the CEO decides everything, right? Where, okay, this is what we think customer want. And luckily enough, our previous CEO used to be the one actually asking customers. That's actually a good basic. But why not have this culture, I mean, when Hans was talking about agility, embedded in all the teams, on all the Lego pieces in the company that we have? Why not? And they would actually be given, like what Paul was saying, you need to have the autonomy and to try to talk to customers every day, every week, and to try the design. You allow them to try. If it's within your control, you try. If it's not within your control, you can only make scenarios. But a lot of things are within our control. You can, for these things, you can do plan, do, check, and act on it. And if you can teach all this, become a culture, and allow these mini companies, mini teams to become intrapreneurs in the company, sorry, you will have a much more robust company, which is more customer focused than before. I'm not saying that previously we were not, but now we have a lot more components who are actually much more customer focused, customer facing, and closer to customers. You become a much more powerful company. And we can learn this from, I learned a lot from Amazon, how they're so customer focused and they're just so fanatic on making sure customer experience by the millisecond is there. We should learn from them.
Thank you very much, Paramount. And I would like to ask Antonio. Antonio, from the managers of the insurance company, insurance companies needs to act very, very quick, needs to make a very fast transformation. Can you share with us what are your challenges, good practices in the process of the transformation?
I leave that in the middle, whether insurance companies should be quicker than say banks or other institutions. I think we all need to be quick, but that's maybe not that relevant. I think on transformation, it is actually a word that I use with care. The first image that comes to mind always is the metamorphosis from a caterpillar to the butterfly, which is really a major change. The animal really changes. Personally, I don't think that a lot of companies, certainly not in our sectors or even beyond that, have gone through such a fundamental change. And probably they should not even try. But there are degrees. On the other spectrum, it is the spectrum that I like more, is to create an organization that transforms itself gradually through constant improvement and constant change, which is a slightly different approach, and it's obviously a much less traumatic. Now, if you are faced with a crisis and you really need a major transformation, so you are at one end of the spectrum. We all know the need to have this burning platform, coalitions of equal-minded people that carry that forward. It requires a leadership style with a lot of clarity on the direction. The comment that Armand made is very important. That clarity of direction should really be infused with a view of what are you going to offer to your customers, because it starts with that. Now, it is, if you are in these type of major transformation, and I'm linking it back to the people aspect. I'm aware that was the topic of your first session. A question you should answer yourself is, do you really need new people? So it's about changing people, but changing people can mean two things. It can actually bring new team members on board, or can you actually change the behavior or the roles of your existing team members? I think that is an important question. Personally, I think, and maybe it's nice to hear Paul's view on that we tend to overestimate the capacity of people to fundamentally change their behavior. So I think for any major change or transformation, you will need to infuse the organization, and therefore the leadership, with people from the outside, or have major changes internally, much more mobility, that particularly younger people take up new roles. So I think you need to change the leadership team to go through really major transformations. Then again, I'm always more in favor of the continuous improvement, and I think the agile approach that is described by Hans is somewhere there in the middle. It's not a pure transformation, but it's a high-speed continuous improvement where there are some aspects of this mobility, agility, and coping with ambiguity, which is important in that area. I think the ambiguity part in any change is something you need to embrace, because the environment is uncertain. So you need people that are able to cope with that, which in a real crisis, by the way, I think would be more of a bad thing. So if you really have to transform because you're in a crisis, then really clarity of direction, and I like the metaphor of burning your ships. There is no way back. The caterpillar that transforms, there is no way back for him. But that requires a very different style. Whereas in a company that is gradually changing or transforming itself, you need this people that like this ambiguity, that are curious, that try out new things without throwing all the old stuff overboard. So 2 very different styles. I would certainly promote to go for the continuous improvement of which requires this ambiguity, diversity in your teams, nurture mobility within the organization, between the silos that it was mentioned, between generations. So I think those are all fundamental aspects to change the way a company is managed and embrace a rapid pace, a more quicker pace of change. Because I think we all agree that it is what we need. We just need to speed up the way that we change. Whether you are a bank or insurance company, I think it's true for all.
Thank you very much, Antonio. And I would like to ask Paul to share your experience, Paul. You support managers in different financial institutions. Can you share with us good practices in creating leadership style in the organization? I think it will be good summary of the answers of our guests.
So I'm going to suggest that people dispel the notion of leadership style actually and move from style to substance. The problem with any one particular leadership style is it's a bit like a broken clock. And in fact, we've heard this, as Antonio was just saying, there are different styles are appropriate for different circumstances, different contexts, with different followers. And no single leadership style would be appropriate for any particular context. So if as a leader, you are attempting to enhance your leadership and you fixate on a particular style, or you feel a style is appropriate for you, this will only work sometimes. Most people feel that transformational leadership style, generic, is widely considered to be the most desirable style of leadership. But sometimes a transformational leadership style can actually be quite problematic. There's lots of talk these days of being an authentic leader, an authentic leadership style. Now, that's also problematic. There was a case recently in the UK where the chairman of KPMG, people might be aware, made some interesting comments about unconscious bias, and he was nothing if not being authentic. So style is a bit of a red herring, I suggest, and I would suggest that leaders focus much more on their philosophy of leadership rather than a particular style of leadership, and the philosophy can then offer a framework that guides how somebody is as a leader in any one particular situation and for any given set of followers and colleagues. And there are 3 components of a leadership philosophy which I work with my clients. The first and most important, well, not necessarily the most important, but the starting point is to be very clear on what is the outcome, or what are the set of outcomes you're looking to achieve from your leadership. I don't mean in terms of business results, but what type of culture are you attempting to achieve within your organization or within your team? What sort of behaviors are consistent with this type of culture that you want to achieve? What type of relationships do you want to have in your organization? What relationship do you want to have with colleagues and followers? What relationships would you like them to have with each other? Do you want to create a culture of collaboration or competition? Is there some inconsistency between collaboration and competition? Do you want to create a culture of fear? Some leaders believe that fear is a helpful motivator. I'm not condoning that, but what I'm suggesting is be very clear. What are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve relationally as much as anything within the organization? Because things like collaboration and cooperation, they're outputs of whether we trust each other, how we, the relationships, the type of relationships we have with each other. Once you've established what the outcomes are, then you need to consider what are your fundamental beliefs about human nature. Because whether you like it or not, if you're a leader, you're not part of leadership is helping others to, whether you consider it to be optimize performance or more holistically going beyond performance and developing the person, you need to consider what are your beliefs around how you do that, because you do have beliefs, even if you've never explicitly considered it. They manifest in how you act as a leader. And in fact, if you've never explicitly considered it, the best people to tell you what your beliefs are the people who work with you and the people who work for you, because you see beliefs through behaviors. So, what do you fundamentally believe drives human motivation? Were you brought up, and this is where understanding yourself as a leader, what you bring from your legacy of work experience and life experience, how does that impact how you are as a leader? When you were young, were you and there was a problem, were you brought up to solve something yourself? Were you taught implicitly, maybe by parents or teachers, that you should resolve things yourself, or that you should seek support from others? This will impact how you behave as a leader, because you will either see a group to be much more community-based, or being much more the sort of Western American model, being self-determination, self-directed. So being very clear on what your beliefs that you hold is important. And then the third component is to focus on the process. How do those beliefs then manifest themselves in how you lead? So how do your colleagues experience you? What tools do you use to translate beliefs into outcomes? And then the key to the thing that wraps around that is being able to critique that. So are you clear on how a particular philosophy of leadership might be appropriate under some circumstances, but not others, for some followers, but not others? Because sometimes you do need to have a hierarchical command control style of leadership. If you have a decision to be made which is very time pressured, very consequential, that is not the time to be telling people to learn from mistakes. And if you know what the right answer is, and you know that somebody is going to make a poor decision, that is it's then inappropriate to say, well, I want to be a coaching style of leader and adopt a coaching approach to my leadership. It's too rigid. So sometimes coaching is appropriate, sometimes command control is more appropriate, but the really sophisticated leaders are able again to adapt their approach to leadership so it's appropriate for any one particular situation. So there's a flexibility there around how they approach leadership, rather than being wedded to a particular style.
Thank you very much, Paul. And we've got a question from our participants. If we can't have a big bang transformation to agility, how to succeed in a different speed transition along the organization? Who would like to answer?
You want me to answer? Because
yeah, if you can.
Try. Maybe you shouldn't want a big bang transition. Maybe that's not the best way to go there. So you. What I see, and I've also seen that with other organizations, you start small. You start in a pocket where you can have a team or a little piece of the company, and start there with an agile way of work. But then really make sure that the circumstances are in a way that you can really implement it there properly, so that there are end-to-end responsibilities, that they can achieve something on their own, and they're not dependent on others who are not in an agile way of work. You have to do the carve out in a way that you're set up for success and not set up for failure. I mean, for instance, if you want to do something in the front end of a bank, so change something in the web, and you only can change the web component, but all the back end stuff is in the IT department, which is absolutely not agile, and takes 6 months to do any changes, you'll never be able to be successful in having an agile world and have agile experience in agile delivery in the first place. So wherever you start, you can start small, no problem. Make sure that the circumstances are optimal to fulfill, to create success. And starting small is of course a good way, and maybe select people, do all these things necessary to be successful. not just call it agile.
Maybe I just can build up on that. Huh? So I'm totally agree with Hans that it always pays off to start small, experiment this new approach. But if you really want to have at the end a major change without going through a traumatic transformation, the thing that you really must change in organization is the way the resource allocation process works. Now it sounds a bit academic, but you have a lot of vested interests in any organization. The successful departments that make the money, they want the highest budgets, but they might not be the areas where you want to grow in the future. So you really need your management team or your leadership, you want to call it, to kind of change fundamentally the resource allocation process. That is a condition to have this quicker change. If not, these processes that are in cross-an organization will just slow things down. I think we all recognize that.
Can I add one thing to that? If you look at many banks in the world, they spend a lot of money on the branch network, and there are a lot of people in the branch network. They cost a lot of money. If you want to be in the digital space, are you maintain everything there and have the money to spend on the digital space, or do you think, well, I have to make some changes in my organization? These are the fundamental things banks have to think about, in my opinion. A resource allocation, and that means budget allocation as well. And that also means a different type of people. I mean, if you're into process management digitalization, it's different than selling a mortgage or selling an insurance product. It's different type of job, different capabilities.
Thank you very much. And I've got another question. Everyone is speaking about success. Can someone talk about what do they mean by success? I think that, of course, you agree with me that it's linked with leadership, because, of course, we say about success, but how we can show for the people the success and how we can say about success. Who would like to share your?
Can I share?
Yeah, of course.
Do you mind if I share 3 slides to answer this question?
Okay.
Which is a thing is recorded, right? And which also we're actually complementing Antonio's talk about the metamorphosis as well.
I hope you will be able to.
Yes. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So if I continue, and I like Antonio's, I already prepared Antonio's slide. So I think your definition of success will be different for each company. That I would say. Because I've worked in a company who are like egg, who are still new, like a startup. There are companies who actually need to grow revenue, like a Caterpillar. There are companies who are in the stage where they have to transform, or else they die. And there are companies who are in the stage actually they have to prepare for succession. Their business has been successful. They need to actually make a rejuvenation. You can read the book called Zone to Win by Jeffrey Moore. He talks about this pretty well. Whether companies start with incubation, where you have your definition of success is your ability to innovate product. And one day, as it grows, you're more scalable, then you need to grow your number of customers. But in short, whatever definition of success is to survive. In whatever stage you are, you need to survive. That's the number one, I think for me, a measurement of success is you survive and you're healthy in that zone. There are some zones where you have to grow revenue. There's some zone in the next zone, once you have revenue and customer, you need to grow profit, customer loyalty. And there's certain zone where you're so big, you have scale, you need to invest for efficiency. And this is what we do in our group, because we're a group that we differentiate which companies goes, what is the definition of success for each of our companies and mini companies. So we would actually map it according to this framework. Now, Paul talked about framework, right? You see, this framework actually really helped our group. Where Paul said about the leaders need to have to get the framework so it's clear for everybody where you are aiming for. We have certain, BCA is a 64-year-old company, so our definition of success is profit, customer satisfaction, automation, efficiency. But some of our new companies, like BCA Digital, is a new bank just starting up this year. We cannot measure profit. Our definition of success is actually just to innovate and be cool. Some companies like our BCA Life is actually now going to be profitable, but not yet. Our definition of success is actually customers engagement, and revenue. So it really depends on where you are. I cannot say there is one answer, but in the end, you have to be healthy and you have to survive in your own zone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good summary for our discussion. And of course, I think that you will agree that the topic is such a big, and we can talk about the leadership, but creating leadership style for the whole day. But we need to go to the end. And I would like to ask John for the conclusion for our today's discussion. We don't hear you, John.
Technology, you'd think by now, after a year of using Zoom, you'd get used to the fact it keeps switching you off. I suppose the first thing is to congratulate you on pulling together such a quality panel, because I think the insights that they've shared today are of real value in a subject that is absolutely key to success inside financial organizations. I think if you wind the clock back probably about a couple of years, Gartner produced a report that indicated that around about 80% of the financial players wouldn't be around by the year 2030. Actually, that's not too far away. 80% may be a significant overstatement of impact of the changes. Pre-COVID, of course, this was as well. Maybe it's only 50%. But whatever it is, the world of financial services is changing dramatically. It's changing, as we've heard, because of technology. It's changing because of what customers are experiencing elsewhere, whether it happens to be Alibaba, Uber, Amazon. They are changing the landscape of customers' expectations. And it's incumbent upon the banks that want to survive that actually they are led by individuals that can create a culture that can cope with this change. Certainly in the very early days of COVID, you found many organizations focused heavily on cost. Cost was the big issue. That has now changed much more to innovation, growth. How do we cope with this new world? The surviving organizations will without doubt be the ones that are very much led by individuals who are very different and adapting to their different marketplaces. It's very different in different environments. If you think of the football world where teams enjoy success for periods of time and then not successful, but they don't all have the same manager operating the same leadership style. But the change of a leader can dramatically improve the performance of an organization. It's significant in terms of future performance that the organization really inwardly looks at itself in terms of what it wants to deliver. And I think the comments we've had from panelists today have given some real added value and insights as to how organizations generally might be adapting to be quality leaders in the future. So I'm very grateful for their contribution, grateful for the EFMA team in putting together the event. And I hope for all those that have been tuned in today, there's been a few areas of learning that they can take away and bring into practice inside their own organization. So many thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much, John. And I would like to ask Philip van Verhen, head of EFMA Business Academy, for some words.
Yes, thank you so much, Ulan. And again, congratulations to the panelists. And the good old time of physical conferences would have mean that we would have done this for hours and hours. I guess the topic and the quality of the panelists deserve a 1 or 2 day conference to touch all the topic, but we did in 1 hour. Congratulations. Yes, as you can hear, the topic is about transformational mindset, business transformation, and also reskilling, upskilling people. And this is why, at the request of the board and the majority of members, we have created that division called EFMA Business Academy and Advisory. This is about putting together a new, call it pay-on-demand service, bringing learning experience, programs, trainings, conferences, and advisory services, to bring a lot of different knowledge, case studies, and practitioner live testimonials. And the difference with the traditional training companies or universities for business that you might meet is that we combine those experts, and you had a good example with Paul Berry today. I hope you enjoyed his his belief. We combine this with the different practitioners who we can bring into those programs. So just very quickly, we've got 3 blocks in the EBA division. One is about business topic, where we will handle, the hot topic of the industry, no surprise about customer experience, AI, SME banking, digital sales, etc., etc. Then we have a block which is exactly the block of today, talking about leadership and coaching, where we can act and help institutions on different aspects like, creating a coaching style, low stress teams, etc., etc. And also we have advisory services for formulating, let's call it strategy review. Those are valid for all the topics that you can see there, and no surprise, those are the hottest one of the industry, which the members confirm to us. So that's what we want to tell you. And of course, the webinar today was produced by the EBA team. So congratulations to everyone, and word back to you, Ola. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Philip. And I would like to thank you very much for my great guests, for my great speakers, for a lot of inspiration, a lot of great practices. I think that I'm sure that our participants will come and will finish our meeting and will act and will start new activities and will start to implement new ideas. And I would like to thank you very much for all the participants. Thank you for all the questions. I'm sorry, because of the time, we couldn't answer all the questions, but we will answer them because we are preparing the articles that will summarize our webinars. And also the recording of this episode and this webinar and the episode number 1, the recording is on our website. So you will be able to share this with your colleagues. And also, we will ask you for some feedback and the inspiration and feedback and information about recommendations of the content you would like to see and you would like to talk about with us during our next webinars, because we plan the next webinars. We would like to support you in your challenges, in developing people, in creating leadership style. So thank you very much for today. Thank you again for my great speakers, and see you on the next webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a great day, night, evening. Bye-bye.